Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us and being here for this awesome conversation. This is my first time doing this. I was lovingly reached out to by Natalie from All Homesteading, and we are here to have just an amazing knit and chat discussion together. And I'm so happy that she reached out today. Yeah, so I am Isabella of Breathing Yarn. I've been doing YouTube for only 7 or 8 months so far, and right now I'm working on the Semper sweater vest in just a bright pink, because everyone needs a bright pink sweater vest.
They completely do. I love the color. It's like a sort of raspberry pink key.
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, I'm Natalie. As Isabella has said, I'm from All Homesteading, and the vibe of my channel is, I guess, knitting, homesteading, gardening with an experimental arty vibe, I guess. I'm on the east coast of the UK, not too far from London.
Yeah, and I'm calling in from Oregon in the United States, so opposite of
yeah.
the world.
Yeah, but it's all good. We're brought together by knitting and YouTube, I guess.
Yes, right? To sort of ease into a bigger discussion that's going to happen today, we're going to do a quick this or that section to do a rapid fire get to know crafty preferences.
Yeah.
All right, you ready?
Yeah, completely. Yes, let's go.
All right. Alpaca silk or silk mohair?
Alpaca silk.
Me too. I'm allergic to mohair, so.
Oh, are
that's
you? So
easy
you
one.
have your reasoning, you have your rationale ready to go. Do you know why? Do you know what it is about the mohair?
I'm really lucky in the world of my health. I just have incredibly sensitive skin.
That's interesting. I do find, just on a personal level, I'm not
Mhm.
against mohair because I use it quite a bit, but I find alpaca softer, like a lot softer than
I
mohair. I
agree.
find that alpaca has like a buttery feel,
Yes,
especially when it's knit with wool,
Mhm.
whereas mohair can be quite prickly and wiry. It's strange like that.
Oh, I agree. And I mean, this is alpaca, so you can get the similar mohair vibe.
Yeah, exactly. But you can tell the difference by feel, I think.
Sweater or cardigan?
Sweater, I think. For me, I think I do have some cardigans. Only one that I've actually knitted myself.
Mhm.
No, tell a lie. That two that I've knitted myself. One was actually my first ever project that I still have, but the other is a pink alpaca mohair
Mhm.
cardigan, and nothing against, but I think sweaters just go better for my needs. You know.
Yes, I
Um,
agree. I feel like cardigans can be a little fussy to wear sometimes if they're not made
yeah,
quite right.
yeah, I think so. Maybe we just haven't found the right pattern for us.
I know. People, let me know if you have any magic cardigan pattern recommendations. I'll take them.
Yeah, because I think with cardigans though, you say, they can be a bit fussy, and I think the cardigan that I knit was the novice cardigan by
Yeah.
Petite Knit and mohair edition, and it just doesn't sit. Obviously, because it's novice, it was probably a very basic pattern, but it just
Yeah.
doesn't sit very well. The sleeves are too wide, so I'm in the
Does it ever
process of
fall
adjusting
backwards
it.
on you?
Exactly, especially if it's a
Okay.
V-neck, or actually it
Mhm.
doesn't really matter if it's a crew neck or a V-neck. It doesn't really sit right.
Because I also did a petite knit for my only finished cardigan project, and I have the issue of it always sliding back. But I'm working on a
Mm,
cardigan right now, the campsite waffle cardigan, and
okay.
it seems to be a little different. So we'll see.
Okay. I guess even like store bought, I do have a really nice cashmere store bought cardigan that
Mhm.
is amazing, but I would still reach for a sweater more than a cardigan.
Cotton or linen?
Linen in general,
Mhm.
however, cotton is a lot more durable and it's a lot more economic. But linen for everything else.
Mhm.
How about you?
I have yet to work with linen, so I don't think I can answer this. Cotton
Hmm.
by default. I'm excited
Okay.
to work with linen. I really want to.
Yeah, I think Pearl Soho have a few bases that you could try.
Color work or lace work?
Color work, for sure.
Me too. Me too.
Is there a
It's
reason? Do you have a reason why?
it seems so much easier to me and a little bit more forgiving, I guess, from my perspective, but maybe it's just because I've done more color. It just makes more sense in my brain.
Yeah, same. Actually, it's weird that this is the same because yeah, it's definitely a lot more forgiving because if you're choosing contrast colors, you
Hmm.
just need that pop, so
Hmm.
it's not so focused on the actual stitch and the definition of the stitch because it all
Yes.
kind of merges together as one nice fabric in the end.
Hmm.
But yeah, the lace work just does not take any prison.
I also love, I'm looking at our notes. I love that I forget, in the UK, the word color is spelt differently because you guys have a U in it and we
Mm.
we do not. I like the U. It seems fancier.
No, apparently though,
Hmm.
the difference, the discrepancy in spelling between American English and British English is apparently because I can't remember who it was, but there was somebody cited for this,
Hmm.
but it's to do with print media. So to cut money with print, no, honestly,
This sounds so right. That's why I'm laughing. It sounds so true.
yeah, I mean that's what I've read. So to cut money on print, certain letters that weren't like phonetically necessary were
Hmm.
dropped. That's what I've read, and that's what I'm choosing to believe.
Small circumference needles, magic loop, or DPNs.
I would go for small circumferences. You?
Same, same. It just feels easier,
Yeah,
simpler.
yeah, it does. It does. I've done DPNs a few times, but it's just annoying. That's like sort of the
Yeah,
least option for me.
they're fussy.
Yeah, completely. And whereas Magic Loop is fine, it's a means to an end, really. Because sometimes when
Yeah.
you're decreasing a lot and you know, you're just sometimes Magic Loop just happens.
Well, and then if I don't want to buy another set of needles, I'll just use whatever I have and make
Yeah,
magic loop
yeah,
work.
true.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
economical.
Yeah, exactly. Use what we have. I'm all about that.
Yes, use what we got. I just need that tattooed on my forehead. Um, Cone or Hank?
Cone for me, please.
Oh,
For several
absolutely.
reasons. Yeah.
I like that cones are big, so you don't have to connect anything.
Yeah,
I just,
exactly. I do connect because I don't tend to knit from directly from the cone. I do
mhm.
tend to like wind it up into smaller balls.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Do you not?
No, I just carry the cone around. Just a massive cone. Yeah.
All right. That's interesting. No, I never knit from the cone. But the point is it is possible to knit from the cone.
Okay, but here's the question. Do you do center pull or outward pull? We're throwing in an extra question.
Um with a cone, because
Mhm.
generally you can't, like, I'm talking
With the
when I'm
cone, you
talking
kind of
about,
have to do the
you have to
outward
do
pull.
outwards, yeah, but in from a, let's say, from a cake, it really depends.
Okay.
Like if I'm holding double, I obviously do one from the center pull, one
Yep.
from the outer pull. If I'm using unspun, like a plötulopi, for example, I
Hmm.
actually pull from the outside, sorry, from the inside.
Can you repeat the name of the brand? Because I've heard it pronounced by.
The brand is Istex, but the
Uh-huh.
it's Plotalopi.
Okay. I like the way that that sounds. Okay, because I've heard Americans and Canadians pronounce it Plotalopi, and that just sounds like
Oh, but
wrong.
I don't think my pronunciation is correct because I think that an Icelandic person will probably say something completely different. So I don't think I'm
We
saying
can
it
just
correctly.
accept in the knitting world that none of us know how to pronounce anything except for the Nordic countries.
Yeah, exactly. In sort of Scandinavian languages, the O with, oh, I'm not even going to speculate because yeah, yeah, I just say plutalopi,
Yes.
but it's probably not right. Have you used any unspun?
No, I don't think so.
Ah, you should definitely try. I do love an unspun.
I'm gonna add that to my knitting bucket list.
Definitely, definitely. And it's so economical as well. Well, obviously, I don't know what the prices are in the States where you are for Icelandic yarns. But Plötulopi, right, the thing about Plötulopi that I absolutely love is the smell of it. Like it's, I don't know if you're into like sheepy yarns, but I always like when I'm working from it, just like I get a plate because they're not in balls, they're in plates, and I just like ram it in my face and just take it's intoxicating.
Do you do the same with your cats? Okay.
No.
Never mind. Who would do that?
Do you do that with your cat? What does your cat smell like?
Very clean, and it just like it's comforting and a little hint of sheepy to me.
Oh wow. Okay. No, I have a cat that smells like fish.
Yeah, okay.
But weirdly, it is quite comforting as well. Like we have a big dog. When he was younger, when he was a puppy, because we've had him since he was like 8 weeks old, his paws smell like weird, like biscuits.
Interesting.
He doesn't smell like that now, but it's like if you this is a bit gross, but like it's
No.
a combination between fart and biscuits. Like baked goods. It's that kind of smell.
Oh, yeah.
So any kind of a bakery smell. It's weird, like yeasty.
Oh.
I don't know how to describe. But
I am loving these descriptions.
Yeah, but it is comforting as well. It's comforting as well. So there must be something in us that that gets comfort from the smell of animal.
Thank you for indulging this tangent. I love it.
Oh no, not at all.
Do you like this should be an obvious one, I think. Do you like to hold yarn single or double?
That is strange because I don't actually have a preference.
I think it so depends on the project that you're working on. But if it was the difference between holding two like fingering weight cottons versus one DK weight cotton, like which option would you go with? I personally would just go with the DK weight cotton.
Yeah. Only that holding it single is just it is easier and it's cheaper as well.
Hobie or drops?
Drops, I think, yeah.
Me too.
Have you ever used any hobby yarn?
I've only used the it's Happy Place by Toni Lipsey, who does Teal Yarn Crafts, a crochet YouTube channel. So she did a partnership with Hobie, and I was like, sure, why not? I'll try her yarn, and I actually really like it.
I used Hobby, no, not used, but I bought some like one batch of hobby yarn a while back. And the yarn, it was like this really thick 100% wool roving. I think I've talked quite a bit about my experience with that yarn. It was fine for the projects that I used it for, which obviously weren't wearables because it's roving, so it was quite difficult. The thing with it was that it was quite cheap to buy, but it was annoying to use because it kept breaking. But I made like this wasp nest for the garden, and it was out in all like a decoy wasp's nest. I think I linked to the original pattern, but I made it. But the point of that was that I was sort of dogging on this hobby yarn because I was like, oh, it was quite a chore to knit with it because it kept on breaking, even more so than like unspun yarn, because I'm used to knitting with unspun yarn that breaks all the time, but it's quite easy to sort of splice together, so it's not an issue at all. But with this, I sort of said, oh, I don't like it. But then with this wasp nest, I had it out in all weather for a year, and it's still going strong. Like, so
that's impressive.
Durability test here. So hobby yarn passes the durability.
Good for wasp nest. Do you prefer raglan or set-in sleeves?
Just raglan by default because I don't think I have ever used set-in. No, I have knitted set-in sleeves once. So just raglan because that's what I'm used to. And you?
I prefer the fit of set-in, but I like the process of raglan more.
Why do you like the fit? What is it about the fit of set-in sleeves?
So it's not that I love set-in sleeves that much, but I think random
Yeah.
the fit just isn't. Something just feels off, and I feel like you have to get the ratios just perfect to get the
Okay.
right sleeve to body width combination.
Okay. That's interesting. It's interesting how we have different, some, people have different experiences with different things. Because for
Hmm.
me, I think raglans are quite forgiving,
Hmm.
whereas I think that yoked sweaters, for me, that's the sort of, ooh, for me, I have to be careful about how low I go with a yoked
Hmm.
sweater because I feel like T-Rex arms,
Yes.
with
Yep.
when it goes a bit low.
I relate to that. I definitely relate to that. If you could only do one, would you do weaving and ends or blocking?
If I could only do one, would I weaving and or blocking for sure? For
I would
sure,
say,
blocking.
assuming that I can at least tie the knot, then I'm good.
I don't know about you, but my projects, like I didn't actually comment on what I'm knitting on. I
Yeah,
am just
sorry.
knitting on a simple, no, I actually forgot, a simple scarf. Oh, it's the same color as my, I'm just knitting on a simple scarf, just like a garter stitch scarf. Oh, I actually forgotten what else. um because blocking just seems like that final step of like preparation. So it's
Yeah.
done, you've done the project. And I don't know about you and how you treat your projects when you when you're knitting, but my projects go everywhere, like on the
They
floor,
get dirty.
animal. So it always
Oh,
needs
yeah.
a bit of a soak, a bit of a spa.
Hmm.
And then you just lay it flat. So to me, blocking is just like easy work for a
Hmm.
nice result.
It
Whereas,
feels like putting your art in a frame. It's just that like final touch to make it look really polished and
exactly,
nice.
yeah.
I would love to hear your side of this. What motivated you to start a YouTube channel? What was the build up to that like?
I have only been uploading videos to YouTube for just over a year. So I think like my first video went up maybe in March 2023.
Well,
I want to say.
congratulations.
Thank you. But what prompted me was I started a blog in January 2023, and I thought it would be good to take footage of my projects of like gardening stuff. I used YouTube as just a place to host these videos for my
Hmm.
blog, but that didn't really get much traction because literally
Yeah.
I wasn't really publicizing it. It was literally uploading it onto YouTube, getting the link, the YouTube link, and posting it to my blog together with like a blog post.
Hmm.
Yeah, so then I started thinking, okay, maybe I can document what I knit because I've always enjoyed watching knitting content. It was just a little bit disheartening that I didn't actually see anybody like myself
Hmm.
online, my age, my ethnicity. And I thought, okay, why not just start, just be the change you want to
Yes.
be in
Yes.
the world, add to sort of the voices as well. So that was my motivation. How about yours?
That's really beautiful.
Oh,
Um,
thank
that just
you.
reminded me of a quote that some famous person that I don't remember said, which was, the advice was if you want to see a book, like if you are searching for a book and you have an idea of what you're looking for and you just can't find it, write that book. Um,
Mm,
and so I took that mentality with YouTube of like, okay, what would my favorite YouTube channel to watch look like? And I am not there yet, but slowly building up to that. But I started the channel because I just would send video snaps on Snapchat to my mom and my friends, and they got really lengthy. And I just really wanted to talk to someone about my projects because I don't have any
yeah.
friends. And so I was just going on these long monologues, and it felt really unfair to send 20 minutes of Snapchats to my mom every day. So I just started recording it instead because I was already recording it
Yeah.
on my phone.
How long did you say you've been on YouTube for? Did you say?
End of September of
Oh,
last
wow.
year.
Okay.
So that's why I think it's amazing that you've been on for over a year because I have almost quit. So I just think
What do you mean? You've almost quit YouTube?
Oh yeah. So I
Oh,
had
yeah,
one
really? Why?
video. It was my like knitting supplies recommendation video, and I only had like a couple subscribers at this point. So I was not expecting many people to watch it. And they were beginners that were commenting on previous videos that were like, oh, what should I buy? Or I really want that. And I was like, oh, you don't need to actually buy this. And so I was like, I'll just make a silly little video about it. And then it got, it's like 130 or 140,000 views at
Yeah,
this point, which for
it's
me is a
huge.
lot. And it was really overwhelming. And that's when, I mean, anyone who makes YouTube videos will tell you, and now I get it. It is a curse to have a video do well. I do not want that to happen again. So many
Why?
aggressive commenters that
Oh, really?
it's not that I took it personally as much as I was like, oh my gosh, should I even be, is it irresponsible for me to be releasing information? Or like, I just felt major imposter syndrome. And someone made oh, never mind. But it's like, I probably shouldn't dive into that. But
Yeah,
things happened that weren't super fun emotionally.
I can
But
understand. Yeah.
yeah, the dust settled, and I realized it was just really being over dramatic. So I feel more prepared if that were to happen again.
You get to a certain level, and then you start, because people like say, oh, I'm not big enough yet to receive hate comments, and I feel like that.
Mhm.
So so I feel quite comfortable, like
Mhm.
comfortably small.
I like that, and I want to do that because I feel like the other thing that happened is a ton of people subscribed that didn't actually like my channel or like my content. And
Yeah,
so
I get
on
that.
the
Yeah.
next like 6 videos, you get comments from people, and it's like, why are you even here? You're clearly not enjoying this.
I've seen like videos, people talking about like their viral videos and what has happened after they go
Mhm.
viral and things like that. And this it's exactly what you've said. It gets a bit uncomfortable. And
Mhm.
people subscribe. Like for me, for example, my representation in
Yeah.
crafts video, that's probably like did the best out of all everything that I've put out. So
I
I
mean, it's a
got a lot
really
of
well done video.
subscribers. Oh, thank you. I felt like that was something that I needed to share,
Mhm.
and I kind of feel like that with my channel in general. Like it's small enough, so if I just want to put out something that doesn't relate to anything else, I feel like I have that freedom to do so because
Mhm.
I'm looking at it more as an outlet. So
This kind of like plays into the next question, which is like, how has social media impacted the fiber art space as a consumer of social media and a creator of social media?
do you want to tackle that one first? I think I need some time to
Yeah, to really let it settle. There's a lot there. It is amazing that you get this wealth of knowledge and information and ideas. And there are so many things that I never would have known about crafting if it weren't for social media. And so I'm incredibly thankful for that education that was essentially free. There's obvious downsides, which have to do way more with, I think, your mentality going into social media.
Yeah, I think it could be a place because I think I use YouTube, for example, quite a lot
Mhm.
to sort of teach myself techniques and things like that. And it's a good place for other crafters. So, for example, how we got together. But I don't really use other forms of social media. But I can see how something like TikTok can help people share their work and make community which we didn't have access to in the past. What like are the downsides? What are the sort of negative impact do you think social media has on like fiber arts and stuff?
Oh, I think the comparison game and the judgment game, inwardly, the oh my
Mm.
gosh, Kudabakika's made 87 sweaters this year and I've only made 10. That's insane. What am I doing wrong? I feel like I'm knitting as fast as I
Is that
can.
an inward voice?
Yeah.
Do you feel that pressure?
I think I did honestly before I started a YouTube channel, and then after starting
Okay.
it, that pressure has diminished. But when it was just me,
Okay.
I was like, oh, am I doing this hobby right? Which is a ridiculous thought to have.
If that's our thought process, I think we have to then be discerning about
Mhm.
the types of content that we expose ourselves to because that's not very sustainable to think like that. Do you know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
I don't tend to have that. I mean, for me, I think the comparison, I think, human beings, we just naturally compare ourselves to others. So yeah, that's natural. And I think, yeah, social media just amplifies that need to compare, and especially as like people are showing what they think is their best work in a way. So for me, I relate more to sort of content that shows, the mistakes, the negatives, the thought processes,
Yes.
and that just makes it a little bit more relatable. So that, because when I show my projects, I don't feel like it's really great or anything like that, but I'm just sharing it because I enjoy it, and I,
Right.
I enjoy sharing what I enjoy. So
Absolutely.
I think also producing content as well ramps that up, because
Mhm.
I think we're both talking about social media as more of a consumer of social media, right?
Right.
But then if you are also creating content in whatever capacity, I think that also ramps up the the comparisons, like, oh,
Mhm.
this person is doing that, they have X amount of subscribers, they post X amount of times. It's not normal, is it, really?
No. So, what has been your relationship to hobbies? And have you always had the same hobbies as a child? Were you encouraged into crafting through extracurriculars as you were growing up? I love this question. You provided this question. I love it.
Have you got your answer ready? You can.
Yeah. So I've always been a hobby collector, and my core has always been crafty hobbies. So as a little kid, I
Okay.
just loved I would cut up magazines and then collage them together on pieces of paper and sketch and draw and
Oh,
fold
nice.
boxes and do whatever I could get my hands on
Were
with
your
and
parents quite crafty as well?
my mom would say no, but she is. She's just very
Okay.
hard on herself. But my grandmother is an artist, and I always respected that and looked up to her for that. That was a positive. How about you?
Okay. I was waiting for you to go.
Oh,
Okay. No, but as an adult, though, what have
mhm.
you said that have you
Oh,
sustained the collection of hobbies and things like as an adult? And have you always knitted and fiber
mhm.
art? So like,
So I think my hobby collection, I just wanted to try out as many as possible. And then during college, because hobbies can be expensive, I
mm,
naturally thinned out and I moved around a lot. So everything I owned had to fit in my car. That just helped me weed out what hobbies I was less interested in. And then what was left was knitting and crochet as my main hobbies. And then ones that I return to are like more art
mm,
stuff.
yeah,
So that's my core. And then in college, I did almost nothing because all I did was sit at home and study like a boring person.
well, that's what college is for.
I was very driven
Okay.
in college. I had a singular goal and hobbies. There was no room for that.
Were you
So
like that in school? Were you quite like,
I was really bad at school when I was young,
oh,
and they would
okay.
put me with the English second language kids, so kids who did not speak English because I was so bad at school. And
Oh,
I think that
really?
Yeah. But then I overheard some teachers talking about how bad at school I was, and I was so embarrassed. And then
Oh,
starting in middle school for us, which is sixth grade, my sixth year, I just threw myself into school. I gave up friendships and was like, I'm going to prove to people that I can do this. I can get good grades. The next, 10 years of my life was just dead focused on
are you
being
happy you
as
made that decision?
educational. Yes. Oh my gosh. It was a struggle. It was a rough couple years, but I grinded so hard
Okay.
in my high school and college years, and then I got the dream job that I wanted so that as an adult I
So
could
it
just sit
paid off.
back.
That's quite inspirational, actually, for kids who hear or feel like their teachers see them like that as well?
Right, because my friends and people that I know who did the opposite of just more relaxed through college, now as adults, they're having to really grind and
Mm,
push through. And so I appreciate that I got to step back.
you have to either work now or work later. Like
Yes,
speaking to a
yes.
kid, like work now or work later. I think similarly, but in a different way. So my parents, they were very encouraging at a very young age to dance. I used to I've been to like various dance schools and things like that. They did, like, if I said, oh, I wanted to learn knitting or, stuff like that, they would have helped me do that. But that wasn't really in the house. Like, my grandma was a very big
Right.
crocheter and stuff, but I didn't really grow up with my grandma really in my life. But she used to send us like little packages of like crochet doilies and things like that.
Yeah.
She was very creative with regards to fiber arts and knitting and sewing and things like that. But in the house, not really. But I have always loved music. I've always loved art, but more as a consumer, and also as a teenager. No real fiber art hobbies, but a keen interest in art. My dad, though, growing up, he was always like hands-on with regards to growing our food, growing our vegetables and things. So I've always seen that aspect of it, but not necessarily like fiber arts aspects like knitting and crochet. So that was just as an adult that I decided to try it out and teach myself. And actually, how I actually started was during the pandemic. I actually swapped a pair of needles and some starter like acrylic yarn for some like starter plants from a with a like a
That's
girl
the
who lived.
most lockdown COVID thing I think I've heard.
Yeah, so that was how I got started, and yeah, just teaching myself. And yeah,
You said you were into music. Do you play any instruments?
so I play the drums, and I'm trying to teach myself the keyboards. Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
a drummer girl.
that's so cool. Oh my gosh, that's so cool.
Yeah, I
Seriously.
don't have I sold my drum kit at like 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Um,
Did you do the full drum set with like the cymbal?
yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know
I've
the
still
word.
got my cymbals. I didn't actually. I sold my hi-hat, but I kept my ride cymbal because I had a huge like Istanbul ride that I love. I just had like some very sort of entry level cymbals and kit that I sold. But yeah, maybe I might, because my husband plays a guitar and we're always like thinking, maybe we should like I should get a cajon, like a very minimal set, like a
Yeah.
cajon, that can be both like the bass. I don't know, like I could get creative with it for a minimal set. Yeah, but anyway, all of these interests
Yeah.
just have been off my own back to investigate and try, like you say, like to collect hobbies and interests. Just as an adult, really, I do wish that my parents were more like, try this, try that, as a kid growing up.
Right. Sorry about that beeping sound.
So like, my mum's thing was baking. Like, she would bake. Her interest or her hobby was baking cakes for occasions. Like, that was her sort of side hustle, but before side hustles.
Yeah,
Um,
we love it.
and so my brother's quite arty. So he used to ice the cake. So like it would be like a whole thing with like
Yeah.
marzipan and icing, and he would like decorate them, and my mum would bake them. So that was their little thing growing up. This was in the 90s, like.
That's
So I do
awesome.
remember that, but other than that, not really. So it's just been off my own.
This is a good like segue into like what was your first knitting project?
Yeah, the very first like knitting project was a cardigan. Was a-
You just
yes,
jumped into a cardigan?
I jumped in. The
Oh
reason
my.
being, I had taught myself the knit and the purl, right? And I wanted a cardigan. And I lived in a particular city at the time in the UK. And there was a Facebook group for females of that city, so that I was part of, right? I started a thread asking for tips on, because I couldn't read a pattern. I
Oh
just knew
yeah.
how to cast on, knit, purl, cast off. And the only thing I actually wanted was a cardigan at the time, right? So in my mind, I thought, oh, I was sort of looking at the cardigans that I owned, and I was like, oh, it's literally like a tube for the arms, two tubes for the arms, and a tube for like a
Yeah.
back panel. That's the way I saw it. There was somebody on, I'm not saying any names because I know that this
Yeah.
person is quite well known. I didn't know then, but I
Mhm.
knew now. So she replied in the thread and was like, "You don't want to make you don't want to make a cardigan. Don't make a cardigan because you make a scarf." And I'm like, I don't want the scarf. But it was kind of like learn to read a pattern. You don't want to do that. It made me want to do it more. It was a bit disheartening because it was just like someone else in the thread had recommended that I buy a kit like a cardigan kit, and so they linked me to the cardigan kit, and I think it was by like We Are Knitters or Wool and the Gang or something like that, and I
Mhm.
was like, what, like £100 for a kit?
Yeah.
I said something like that, and they were like, yeah, but if you're gonna buy the yarn, like, I was so naive then. But anyway, I was like, no, I'm just gonna buy the yarn. I just made it out
Mhm.
of like roving. Yeah, like we were talking about roving in the past.
Did
In
you
the pre,
start with roving?
I know exactly where I got it, but I have too much dignity to go and show this card.
I think
Yes,
it's excellent advice for someone that's beginning to say whatever you're interested in, just try and make it because
that's the
that's it.
advice
It's
that I
about
give. Yeah.
motivation.
So if you have never knitted, like, what do you want to knit? That's the first. If a beginner was
Hmm.
like, I want to learn to knit, I would say to them, learn to knit, learn to purl, learn to cast on. I would never advise somebody to knit a scarf because
Get
it's
bored.
boring.
Yeah. Because I think that's where I went wrong. I didn't knit my first article of clothing until like 12 years after I had learned to knit
Oh wow.
initially,
Okay.
because I didn't know that that was a thing. And I just started with the scarves and hats. If I were to start again, I don't know if this is advice that I would give to anybody else, but I would start and cast on like 20 stitches and just keep going. It doesn't need to be a scarf.
Okay.
I would just keep going
Okay.
until my knits and pearls looked consistent.
Oh
And then I
right.
would start on a project because I love the idea of being able to see progress. So like keeping your
Oh
first
right.
stitches on, I
Okay.
think that would just be really interesting for myself to see. Because
Yeah.
by the time you get to the end, it would be really nice and consistent at the beginning. You'd have all those drop stitches and
You should try making a cardigan. Not
yeah, I know. That's why I'm just amazed that you did that.
maybe one day
Yeah.
I'll like do an episode and I'll be like, here is my very first project. But yeah, it's horrific. However,
Mhm.
and it's because it's roving, it's huge. It looks like one of those, like, I don't know, like Michelin men, like woolly Michelin man.
Oh, I think it could be one of those designer sweaters that cost like $8,000 and
Well,
it could be a thing.
that's why I've kept it. It's got huge
Mhm.
holes everywhere. It's a horror
You mean
show,
those
but
design elements?
those intentional
Yeah.
design elements. Yeah, exactly.
You're so ahead of your time.
With my first few projects, I didn't even know how to decrease. I didn't even know that that was a thing. So I was just like letting the stitch off the needle if I
Yeah.
wanted. It's like I have 10 stitches, but I
How did
don't
that work
want
out?
two. Like, this probably why I have those holes. It's not work, it's hobbies. So that's
Absolutely.
the
It's
joy
fun. It's
in
like finger
learning.
painting.
Exactly, yeah.
I got bored pretty quickly of just doing hats and scarves because that's all I knew there was. I had no idea that people did their own sweaters until
Yeah.
much older. Um, so I just kept making really boring hats and scarves because I didn't want to forget the skill. So I wasn't that interested in it, but I didn't want to forget how to do it. So every once in a while, I would
Well,
just
but how
pick up
old
the
were you
needles.
though at this point?
I was in my fifth year at school, so I don't know, 10.
Oh, right. Okay. But you had the sort of withal to think, I don't want to forget this skill. So that's pretty cool anyway.
Yeah, I was very concerned that I would forget how to do stuff. So I would just every once in a while. Try to do it again.
Oh, but
'Cause I'm like,
that's
oh,
great.
I went through all the trouble to learn this. I don't want to relearn
But
it.
that's quite like mature thinking, to be like, I don't want
Oh
to
yeah,
forget.
lucky. Thank you to 10-year-old me for that one.
Well, exactly.
Do you think that fiber crafts, fiber arts, knitting and crochet attract a particular type of person?
I think so. Yeah. And I think the person is, creative. They like to do things with their hands. And I would
Mhm.
say that there is more of a sort of introversion, I want to say, or
Mhm.
an introvertive spirit, an inherent sort of more reflective person, I think it attracts. What do you think?
Oh, I completely agree. I also think it naturally draws in a lot of people with maybe like physical mobility limitations. Obviously, extroverts are out there in knitting and
Yeah, there
crochet,
are,
but
not to say that extroverts aren't attracted to knitting, but I think just the motion of knitting, just to be
mhm.
quiet, because it is more of a sort of personal, to be quiet with yourself. And
I like your word reflective.
yeah, because that's how I use it. So maybe I just assume that everyone is like me.
Yeah.
And even if it's like, oh, just for 10 minutes, I'll knit for 10 minutes. Because like my husband's always like, oh, um, should we have dinner now or should we start cooking or whatever? And I'm like, yeah. And then my sort of go-to is like, after this row or after this
Yeah.
round.
Oh my gosh. My husband went on a business trip and I don't think he can hear me. I think he missed me a little bit and he ended up watching some of my videos. And so when he got back, I was talking about I like ordered some more yarn. He was like, "Oh, your stash is getting big." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, you just used the word stash." He started using like knitting lingo and it freaks me out.
It's really cool. Did he like your videos? That's the most important thing.
He's a very honest individual and so
No, as in like physically, did he hit the like button?
oh, it's a great question. Did he? Uh how can crafters be more inclusionary in your mindset? And you can interpret that however you like.
So with this question, obviously I've made a video on it. It is something that affects me, it
Mhm.
it affects me whether I make videos or make content or not. I think that life in general is always all the more richer beyond like the suggestions that I put in my video. By the way, viewers, if you haven't watched it, please go ahead
Yes,
and watch that
absolutely.
video. Um, I don't know. I guess how can we be more inclusionary is just to expose ourselves to different crafters. Like literally,
Mhm.
it is that simple. There's
Absolutely.
always something that we can learn from someone. So going back to why I started the like producing content, why I started my channel and stuff, there was a need for me to see content, see people who look like me on the
Mhm.
screen, and to show others as well that this thing can be for you, because knitting and crafting and stuff just brings so many positives, so many
Yeah.
benefits that I think everybody can gain from participating. If there are more people visible, then we are showing like the next generation what is possible for them as well.
And it just makes sense from an inspiration standpoint as well and a creativity standpoint to expose yourself to different everything. Just
Yeah, different everything for sure. Whereas, and I think in the same vein, I do feel, and actually, white viewers have said to me
Mhm.
on my videos that like watching the video, that representation in craft has kind of opened their eyes to see what, and then they've actually said to me things like, oh, I've seen similar content creators, and the white counterpart has a
Mhm.
lot more subscribers. And I think people are still operating on the fact that um, they are more likely to subscribe to a white creator or a white
Yeah.
knitter and stuff. And even though people would never admit that, they just would never admit it. It is what it is, you know?
I think it's wild how people are so reluctant to acknowledge stuff like that. It just doesn't seem like a productive thing to do. But
Well, yeah, yeah.
I
It's
did a video.
uncomfortable, isn't it? It's
Yes,
uncomfortable. People don't want to think of themselves as um I don't, as prejudice. I'm going to use the word prejudice
right,
because prejudice, everybody is to a
right.
certain extent, right? But it's uncomfortable feeling when
Mhm.
when we're forced to confront our own prejudices. I did address this in my video, but it is a position of privilege where you can say things like, it's fiber arts, it's knitting, race doesn't come into it, or
Yeah,
I just like what I like, and it's not about race. But it always, people,
yeah.
like, I can never shrug that off, because my race is very clear, and
Hmm.
it's not just race, it's part of my identity. But when things are different, it's easy to say, it doesn't matter, but it really does.
Yeah, when I did a video where I referenced your video, I got comments that were really upsetting and I ended up deleting because they just don't belong there. And I just thought it was wild how many people were comfortable saying, oh, race does not play into this world. I don't understand what you're
Mm,
saying. A lot of people would point out there are plenty of non-white creators on YouTube. And like, there are quite a few because it's the internet and
mm,
it's vast. But when you look at it
yeah,
in comparison and take into account subscriber
yeah.
content,
Who?
what are their
Yeah,
comment sections look like versus someone else? What?
yeah, exactly. Who are people quoting? Who are people knitting? Like, when I say who, like, as in, like, who are you wearing tonight?
Yeah.
Like, who are people knitting? And I'm including myself in this as well. There is like an element of, we are all just following trends.
And I think people
But
too easily forget you don't need to stop following petite knit patterns, but maybe
exactly.
take a look at the other ones.
Yeah, it's
Take
not
take a
either
look.
or. Yeah, but people feel like they're being attacked, like their choices are being attacked, but it really
Right.
isn't. It's just, there is another world out there, to investigate, to enjoy.
Mhm. It's less about saying no to things and more about saying yes to other things.
Exact. Oh, I like that. Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Shall we? Yes. Let's.
Yes.
This is gonna be quite
Like, okay, what role does creativity and having a creative outlet play into your life?
massively. I think that I am quite a creative person, and I definitely need an outlet for that.
Hmm.
It's necessary for my mental health, for my stability. How about you? What role does creativity play in your life?
I feel like when I'm not being creative, I feel antsy and like something's missing. And I feel like having a creative outlet just gives me a weird sense of purpose.
When people say, I'm not creative, like my husband says that sometimes, I'm not
Yeah.
creative, because he's more like analytical, mathematical, and I'm thinking, everybody is creative. Like,
Oh, yeah.
how you choose to solve a problem, if your mind can be, like the mental plasticity
Mhm.
that comes from creativity. So people think I'm not creative. When they think of the word creative, they think of music, they think of, Jimi Hendrix or Van Gogh. But it's in everything. It's how
Mhm.
you decide to structure your day, how you decide to solve a problem or whatever. It's in every facet.
Oh, there's creativity in how you choose to dress yourself in the morning and the food that you
Exact.
eat.
For me, like, creativity is just, it's just an exercise for the brain. It's like yoga for the brain. I read this article a while back about like cognitive plasticity,
Yeah.
and like keeping your brain flexible
Hmm.
can help stave off like Alzheimer's and things like that. So
Hmm.
doing creative pursuits, and is just really good for your health in general.
And I think it's a great way, again, it's a tangible way to take time for yourself.
Shall we go on to the next?
Absolutely. How has making wearable items impacted your relationship with your body and your relationship with yourself?
Do you want to go first for that one?
Yes, I've been working on a crochet dress that is little form-fitting, and it is
Okay.
very, very out of my comfort zone stylistically, and I'm so nervous of like filming the final shots of me like wearing it. And I got so in my head. And then when I finally finished the project and tried it on for the first time, I was like, oh my gosh, I made this. This is amazing. I'm like, if I am wearing a dress that I made and all I can think about is my hips, something is very wrong.
How did it make you feel when you...
Yeah, so when I put it on for the first time, I feel like all of those anxieties just went away because I was really
Okay.
nervous in the build up to it, but as soon as I put
Right.
it on, I was like,
Okay.
this is different. And I feel that way. I just feel more confident when I wear anything that I've made.
So has it enhanced your relationship with yourself, with your body, or are you pretty
Yes.
neutral, or...
I feel like it's also forced me to confront that a lot more than I would have otherwise. When you're designing clothes that have to fit your body in a certain way, it helped me figure out, okay, what actually do I like now that I'm designing and making something? What length do I like? What sleeve like
Mm,
do I feel most comfortable in? And it changes that mentality, that mental
yeah.
switch of your clothes having to fit you versus like you fitting into your clothes. And
Yeah, I
yeah,
so agree. That's such an important point though. Like just going to the shop and having, having a number, okay, I'm usually this size in this store,
mhm,
and going to try it on. And it maybe it does it that time of the month, because our bodies change
right.
depending on... and that time of the month
Mhm,
your stomach might be, it can be a bit like a negative experience, whereas
mhm,
like you say, like making clothes to fit your proportions,
right.
it personally has had a positive effect on my relationship to my body and
It,
my shape, because I got into
mhm,
knitting at a point where I had put on quite a bit of weight,
mhm,
because I have I've always really been, throughout my 20s, my early 30s, just one size, and I ate what I want. I didn't really exercise. I just walked everywhere.
mhm.
My exercise was going, dancing, or whatever.
Yeah.
And but got to the point where um you move in with your partner, you get married, you get
Mhm,
comfortable, you eat, you go out for food, and suddenly your middle age creeps up, and suddenly I've got curves where I never used to have curves and bulges and all of the other
mhm,
stuff. And all the clothes that I used to have and felt very comfortable in when I was in my 20s and 30s no longer sat the way they used to sit. So I
yeah.
felt super frumpy, and so making my own clothes and choosing things to fit my style,
Mhm,
just was a positive for me.
mhm.
So
I
yeah,
think it's a beautiful way to celebrate and honor your body is by making
yeah,
your own clothes.
exactly. Especially as knitting something just takes such a long time. So you're thinking, you're knitting something. It's a form of self-care in more ways than one.
Yeah, I think I'm moving into a new phase with my knitting and crochet where I'm starting to make clothing that I otherwise would not wear. And because I've put so much time into it, I am way more, I will wear it because I made it. I spent so
Mm,
much time on this, so
yeah,
I have to wear it.
yeah,
And it's helped me get like more comfortable with wearing different types of things, and
for
kind of
sure.
forcing myself in a gentle way to try new
Yeah.
things.
Yeah, that's great. But do you know that there are certain people that don't wear their knits? They're more confident wearing
Hmm.
store-bought.
Yeah, okay. Yeah,
Because maybe they're like, oh, I don't really want to. It's almost like it's
yeah.
not good enough for
Hmm.
them. But whereas
Yeah,
I never feel more like myself than when I'm wearing something that I've made, which is weird, but
absolutely. No, I think that makes absolute sense. Because you just poured yourself into an article of clothing
yeah.
and you put a little piece of yourself into it, so it totally makes sense.
Yeah, you choose the color, you do,
Hmm.
do everything. Obviously, I'm following a pattern. I don't really, apart from like the old days when I was first starting, I don't self draft stuff really.
There's so much creative freedom in the fiber arts when you're following a pattern. It's just giving you, I feel like, the basics of it. I feel like a knitting pattern is just saying you're making chicken for dinner tonight. You got to choose how you make that
Yeah,
chicken.
exactly. Yeah. That's why, like, I literally always choose my own yarn. Like, I don't even think about like, I do think about gauge, but I don't really think like about the suggested yarns or anything like
Oh,
that.
yeah.
I just knit whatever, what I normally it's what I have. I don't tend to buy yarn specifically for projects.
I like that
Shall we?
mentality. Yes, the
Yeah,
last question.
the last
Uh,
question.
how do your perceptions of age and aging relate to your hobbies?
I think I needed some time for this one.
Yeah, yeah. I think maybe an easier lead into that is how do you feel about your age as you currently are and your role in the knitting and crochet world?
You know what? Looking at my YouTube stats, right? Let's start there, right? Just to see what the age demographic of my audience is, and it's primarily women in their late 20s, 30s. And I'm a little bit older than that, so it feels nice that maybe I'm like a big sister, maybe,
Yeah, I really like that.
And
My demographics are older than me, and so it
oh,
feels so
really?
intimidating of like, oh my gosh.
Oh, that's
Talking to a bunch of
interesting.
people that have more experience than
So
I do.
what's the age group of your like demographic?
So I think the larger demographics would be people in their 30s
Okay.
mostly, with like a couple people in their 20s, a couple in their 40s, 50s, and 60s.
Right. Okay.
Um, so it's a
So
little bit more in the 30-year-old
uh,
range, but it's been a pretty
that's
even
interesting actually
distribution.
that we have quite different demographics. Yeah, so that feels quite nice, but I tend to watch all kinds of creators. There are some, I think you in a past video you did cite Danish musings,
Yeah.
who I've watched quite a few times as well, because she is quite well traveled, because I think she does like she's like she travels for her job or something like that. So she has quite a lot of life experience, so that's quite fun to watch. For myself, I have also traveled, and I haven't talked about this really on my channel, but I have a decent amount of life experience, maybe not so much from the knitting point of view. I don't feel very experienced with the knitting point of view, but certainly with like other aspects like gardening and things like that. So with regards to my hobby, yeah, I feel comfortable. I feel like I feel a little bit old for my time, for my age though, as in like what my day-to-day life looks like. I kind of feel like
Yeah. In
my interests are aging me a little bit.
well, I feel like in knitting, I feel like a little kid surrounded by grown-ups.
Okay.
Who's just like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm here.
But that's a great place to be, because you're able to learn quite well from that point, you know?
Oh, and I mean, I've gotten to know, I don't know if you relate to this, but gotten to know certain subscribers that leave comments on, like, they're
Yeah, I love
repeated
that aspect. I
commenters,
love
and you
that
kind of get to
aspect
know them a
of
little
it.
bit. I like the older women that are maybe in their like 60s and 70s, and the advice that they offer up
Oh,
is
so they are, so that's
awesome.
amazing, because whereas I don't feel like within knitting, what I'm sharing, maybe in the gardening aspect, but I'm learning with these people, or like
Hmm.
you, for example, if you've been knitting since you were a child, then
Hmm.
sometimes maybe my subscribers or my viewers have a lot more experience in knitting than I do,
Hmm.
you know? So maybe I should like pull out a little bit more of like life experience, so that I just
Yeah. Well, I
Give
feel
people
like
more for their money.
in the scale, so if, okay, I perceive like Andrea Mowry as an example. I perceive her as someone that approaches YouTube of, here are the things that I've learned, let me share them with you and teach you. And I feel like I approach YouTube and crafting from the perspective of, hey mom, look what I made.
But there's room for both, do you not think?
Right. Oh yeah. I don't think it's an invalid approach. I just think it's interesting.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting someone's self-perception versus how others perceive them, because I'm sure that
Mm.
there are people that watch my channel that are like, I do not get that vibe from you at all.
Yeah, I don't get that vibe from you at all. No.
That's what's going on internally.
Good to know. No, I think having this conversation just goes to
Mhm.
show what actually is going on when, it might be different to.
Yeah.
I think I'm trailing off now, so maybe we should.
Oh, you're good. Yes. I just wanted to thank you seriously for reaching out. That was awesome. And I appreciate that a lot. And for joining me and preparing this has been
Oh, no
fantastic.
problem. It's been so fun, and I've been wanting to collaborate for a while, and it's just
Mhm.
it's cool, it's all good. So don't envy you having to like condense it.
Yeah, right. We'll see how that goes. It's probably
Yeah.
going to be a lengthy one. For people watching, this is part 1 of 2. First one is this one. It's going to be posted on my channel on Breathing Yarn. The second one, as soon as it's out, I will have a link to it in my description, and that will be on the All Homesteading channel that Natalie will host. And so we have lots of really fun conversations set up for that, which I'm very much so looking forward to.
Thank you for meeting with me. It's been a wonderful discussion. See you in the next one.
Oh, absolutely. Bye.
Bye. Right, so see you tomorrow.
Yes, see you tomorrow.
All right.
Okay, bye
Bye.
for real.